Ladies and gentlemen, joining me now on Rappin on Racing is a driver in the RUSH Sportsman Modified division. He was the 2022 track champion at Pittsburgh's Pennsylvania Motor Speedway. We welcome on in Jacob Jordan. Jacob, welcome to Rappin on Racing. How are you doing?
Good. How about yourself, Tyler? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Tell you what, man, a successful 2022 season. What was it like through your eyes?
I think it was so far out of, I've started racing Rush mods in 2016. This was by far our most successful season. This is probably the season I've had the most heat race wins this season, and also finally got the monkey off my back on my first career feature win in PMS, and then also now track champion out there for 2022. So I'm pretty pleased that this is by far best season yet that we've had.
Take me through that night where you won your career first victory. What was it like, earning that win, taking that victory lap around the track with the checkered flag in hand? Tell me everything that you were able to soak in that night.
To be honest, whenever I ended up starting the pole for the feature. I had Cole Holden and Aiden Cipriano right behind me. I knew right then those two guys, they're fast. They're two of the fastest guys in our class. So I knew I was like, I could not mess up. I had to make sure I hit my mark perfect every lap because I know one little slip up, one of those two is going to get me. And then once I saw that I took that checkered flag, like it didn't feel real at first. Like it took a while to sink in. I don't think it probably actually sank all the way in until the next day. It was like a dream come true.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been racing since 2016, 6 years that you were running where you hadn't yet quite earned a victory yet, at least a feature victory. How tough was that on you as a driver to, keep plugging and pushing away at eventually earning that first one?
I just knew never give up, just keep trying and just make sure that I was doing all I was driving, make sure the car was always running to the best of its ability, and just knew that if I kept plugging away that it was going to happen. It only mattered of time. There were nights where I was leading and then lost it with 2 laps to go, 3 laps to go. So it felt good to finally make it happen, finally get the monkey off the back.
So besides those heat race wins, you had mentioned, was there any other victories that like maybe like a dash win or something like that?
My first year in 2016, we got out late in June, and it was a stampede that year, my first ever stampede. I won the dash that we had. It was sponsored by K&N Pro, and that was my very first ever, I guess you could say, checkered flag. That was my rookie year.
So that's pretty cool. So like going into your rookie season, did you have any other success other than that dash win? Did you have any heat race wins or anything?
No, that was all. Just that dash win.
Okay. And like we say that was all, like that's like a small achievement, like that's all, that was all, but like obviously that's a big deal. Your first year, stout competition throughout the years in the Rush Modifieds, and you earn a dash win. That's something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, I remember at the time I definitely was surprised because it was my first year. We got out late. I think the stampede was like my 10th time in the car, and to get the dash win, I remember at the time I was like 16. It was unreal at the time. I was so ecstatic whenever that happened, just because I wasn't expecting anything my rookie season. I wasn't expecting to see I wasn't even expecting a heat race winner, anything. I was expecting my first year just kind of be running around like the tail, trying not to get lapped. We ended up getting that, so that was a big accomplishment for me at the time.
You talk about, try not to get lapped, trying to just hold your own and everything like that. That brings to mind the competition that comes to Pittsburgh in the Rush Modifieds. Though the numbers have been a little bit lower than we've seen in years past, the ones that do show up, as you kind of already mentioned, Cole Holden, Aiden Cipriano, Chelsea Gallagher, Justin Shea, Tony Tattenhurst, you've got a stout field of cars that you have to compete with, and for you to earn a victory and a track championship amongst all those drivers, it's a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like I said, I was surprised. I never would have thought that this year that track championship was going to happen at all. But I'm so glad.
So what comes to mind too is like, it's always a dream, right? To be able to, at your home track, win a race and win a track championship. That's a dream come true. Now that that's been accomplished, what's on your mind for what's your next goals? Like, what are you focused on doing now?
I definitely want to get more wins. I definitely want to get wins like other tracks for sure. And then eventually I'd like to get like a series championship with Rush, whether it be like weekly or tour. Just keep plugging away and definitely get a lot more wins here in the near future.
Consistency comes to mind too, because that's really what it takes to win a track championship. Yeah, you can win every night and that's obviously the ultimate goal. Otherwise, why are we racing? But I feel like consistency plays a big part in that as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. You constantly have to be up front and then to secure, and then hopefully you don't have any misfortunes like a DNF or something breaking.
I feel like what adds to your repertoire as well in terms of consistency, it's easy to be consistent at one track, but when you start jumping to other tracks like a Raceway 7, like a Mercer, the list goes on, it starts to get a little bit more interesting because now you're having to adapt a lot.
You can't really take, every track is completely different how you have to like drive it, or especially PMS. That's like the big one, because short tracks are all like, they're all kind of the same. Not really, but versus PMS, there's no animal like PMS. No track is that big and high speed that we have around here.
Yeah, I feel like, setups might change a little bit, but at PMS, the big thing is you got to run a different gear, and your speeds are, like you said, are so great. Going through the straightaways, you can hear your guys hitting rev limiter down the straightaways and into the turns.
Oh yeah, we're at PMS. We're hammering the rev box.
So there's a term that comes to mind, on the chip. I've heard that before, but what exactly does that mean, on the chip?
So on the Rush mods, we have an MSD rev box, and with our rules is we have to have that chip set at 6,000 RPMs, no more. So when we're going down the straightaways and you hear us hitting that chip, doing that ra-da-da-da-da, the engine's tapped out. We're turning the 6 grand we can turn.
So why is that? Why 6,000? Is that for competition purposes? Is that for the safety of the engine?
I feel like a little bit of both, keeping like everybody like kind of even playing field, and then help keep the engine so we're not wearing them thin by constantly turning them as much as we can week in and week out.
Yeah. You mentioned the Rush series. Obviously now being roughly a 6-year veteran to that division, what made you choose to jump into the Rush Modifieds?
So whenever we were in go-karts for a few years, and we were getting out of go-karts, and we were going to do a hobby stock. Like we actually had a car. We were going to go, we were all set to go buy. And then I remember what our whole game plan was at the time. Once I was like 15, we were going to do hobby stock for a couple of years. And since growing up, we had my grandfather owned E-mods that Russ Matika drove. We were going to maybe go the Econo mod route. Well, then it was one day, Tim Schaefer, he was building his new shop up at his house. My pap, he does excavating. So we were up there, and he was running a skid steer, helping Schaefer out do something. And we told Schaefer like our game plan. I remember he told my pap, he was like, he's been running go-karts. All Jacob's ever talked about was open wheel cars. Just, he'll be okay. Just don't worry about the hobby stock and just do the E-mod deal. So like, all right, so we're going to start looking at Econo mods. And then at the time, we knew from the E-mod days, my pap knew the Kugels. And at the time, Larry Kugel had a Rush mod, and he was keeping it down at Zarin's, which is right down the road from my house as well. So one day, me and my pap stopped down there, and the Kugels, they were telling us about the Rush mods and the cost of them, and we decided that would be our best route to go to get my feet wet in big car racing.
Boy, you're name dropping over there. Larry Kugel, one of the all-time winningest driver at Pittsburgh's Pennsylvania Motor Speedway, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure I'm right there. And then Tim Schaefer. You live in Aliquippa. You race at Schaefer's Raceway. What has Tim been in your career? How instrumental has he been to you in your life, in your career, and everything like that?
Oh, he's been just a big help. Like, not only, well, whenever I first started racing go-karts when I was 8, me and my pap took my car over to his track on like one Sunday afternoon, and I probably put like 80 laps on that track. Schaefer was like helping me out with lines and stuff, and still to this day, just because Schaefer, he's just so knowledgeable with, he has so many laps and just so much experience under his belt. There's still to this day, if we have a race at Lernerville and Schaefer's there running the Grove car, something like that, I'll go over and I'll ask Schaefer about the track, and he'll give me pointers, and just having him to just answer questions and just help me out as a driver is tremendous.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, too, he's kind of, anytime you're at Pittsburgh, we have the Rush mods there roughly 7-8 times a year. Tim Schaefer has made that his home for Rush late model racing, so it seems like you guys are able to pretty much not only pit together, but you're kind of able to bounce stuff off of each other. Not sure how much actually translate from the Rush mods to the Rush late models, but at least you can talk about track conditions and where, he could definitely still help you out on a nightly basis in that term.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely very knowledgeable when it comes to that.
So that's interesting. Seeing the success of the hobby stocks at Pittsburgh, making that decision to go to the Rush Modified route. Looking back now, hindsight being 2020, you're able to play armchair quarterback now. Is there a little bit of regret maybe that you're like, oh man, I wish I could have gotten the fun on those hobby stocks, or are you very confident in your decision that was the right move?
I'm very happy we did the Rush Mod route, because I like my open wheels. I've always been a fan of open wheel cars, sprint cars, center steer modifieds, E-mods. So I'm glad we went this route. Something that I feel like I'm definitely happier going straight Rush mod deal.
Yeah. So we talked about the Rush series. You actually talked about the touring series a little bit, and that comes to mind. How instrumental, how great is the Rush touring series for you as a driver? One of the things that comes to mind is Manufacturers Night. How big of a deal is that for the drivers?
Oh, it's so great. Like, I think it's really the only series right now, because she has their late models and everything, that gives back to the drivers. And every driver appreciates how much that these series sponsors give back, and it just helps out so much. You go to Manufacturers Night, and you might end up with rims, tires, radius rods, crucial parts that you need throughout the season that they just give to us. And we're all extremely grateful for what Vicky does with us by giving us back that. It really, it shows how much that she and the Rush Series sponsors care about their drivers.
It's got to make you feel confident rather, going forward. As far as 2023 goes, obviously another year in Rush mods. Are there any plans maybe to broaden the horizons a little bit and seek new adventures?
We're going to continue running. We're going to try to run as much as we pretty much every season try to run the whole entire complete Rush mod schedule, hit every track on it. And then we're talking about, I just got a new job. I work for the Port Authority, and so does my dad. We're throwing up in the air if me and him both can get our vacation time this year to line up come November. We'd like to take the car down to Charlotte and try that.
Well, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, the week before the World Finals, right?
Yeah. They have the crate and the small engine stuff.
So that'd be cool. That's a new experience. Is that like a dream track for you? Is that something that you've always wanted to? Is that a track that you've always wanted to race on?
Yeah. And then definitely the past 2 years I've been going down for the World Finals. Actually, seeing it in person, it's a track I definitely want to try. It just looks like it's one of those, another animal. Just because it looks so, I got down there and it looked completely different than how it looked on TV. And it was I definitely want to try to get some laps around this place at some point.
Whenever I went down, it was probably about 2010 I went down. So that was before they added the big block modifieds to the card. Now they are a part of it. And honestly, after watching this year's World Finals, as far as fan engagement, it was probably the most fan engaging division that there was down there. Being able to go down there for 2 years, you get to see a lot of the biggest names in big block modified racing on a weekend. Who are some of the names or some of the drivers rather, that you look up to or that you like to follow after?
I like Brett Hearn, because they own TO Fabrications, and that's what I run. My car's a TO Pro car. it's like I like going down there. I go over and I talk to Brett and all the guys from TO and just thank them because TO helps me out a lot during the season just with questions and making sure I have the parts I need in a pinch. So I like going on there. I like we bought a car from a few years ago. Alec Yankowski, he's pretty young. I think if I'm 22, I want to say Alex is 18 maybe 17. But Alex was like literally 16 years old racing a big block modified against some of these guys that have been doing it for 20 plus years, and he runs top 5. So I think it's cool just seeing him, a young kid out there literally racing with the best of the best and being competitive.
Speaking of youth, that brings to mind the youth within the RUSH Modified division. You know, yourself at 22, you've got a Ben Easler who's still in high school, Cole Holden who's not far out of high school. He's probably right around your age. Aiden Cipriano who's starting to make that move now. There's a lot of youth moving up through that RUSH Modified division.
We have Cole Edwards. We're pretty good friends. He drives on the other team. I think he's 14. We have Lucas Cannon. I want to say Lucas is like 15. Don Gabriel, he's 15 or 16. So yeah, it's definitely a younger group of guys.
Which is cool because the initial process, the initial plan for the RUSH series was to be a stepping stone up to, you know, the big blocks or super late models or full size sprint cars. And the cool thing is you kind of get a little bit of a mix of both because there's also veterans who race in there. You got your guys like Garrett Crummert who will jump in a Jerry Schaefer car at any moment, who can mix it up as well. So you get that nice little bit of experience as well.
Oh yeah, and it makes for great racing, in my opinion, because you have both those two different levels mixing up on the track, and then you can learn by watching those guys like Garrett and Rock Kristalak. He raced with us. He ran big blocks for years. You can just like even watching those guys and try to pick up on what they do.
So was there any plans this year? You and I kind of talked about perhaps what your future would be. You were maybe looking at a different avenue, but something came up.
Yeah, we were really about to make the move and go RUSH sprint racing. We weren't going to do we were still going to keep them modified, but we were going to try to play with both. But it's one of those things, some other things down the line end up happening and everything that was set in stone kind of fell out of place. So hopefully maybe one year in the near future, you'll see us with the RUSH sprint car, but not this season, sadly.
You talk about a division that has a lot of diversity. That is certainly one of them, the RUSH sprint cars. You've got young guys making their way up through, but you've also got these wily veterans who are taking a liking to that division. You got the guys like Arnie Kent, Gil Ruth Jr., Rod George, and if I'm missing any, it's not intentional by any means, but man, it's an impressive thing to watch, and it's not just in that aspect as far as drivers who are in that field, but they're fun to watch in general.
Oh yeah, especially I remember we had a race in Knox this past year. We had one race up there, great track. Hopefully we go back there this year. Fun little track. Sadly, we broke a rear end during our heat race. Only got to play with 2 laps on it, but the RUSH sprint cars are up there with us, and they put on a terrific show at that place.
How tough is that for you in terms of consistency where, you know, you got to go to these different tracks that's not like PPMS? Is that tough for a driver?
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to definitely be able to adapt to the different track, just size and condition, constantly running with RUSH just because we hit so many different tracks, but it keeps it fun. It's keeps you on your toes. It's always, every weekend it's kind of something different.
Yeah.
Which I like about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about your points win, your first career feature win, your heat race wins. What are some other goals that you have in line for the rest of your, I guess, in the near future for your racing career?
I just kind of want to stay consistent, definitely want to get more wins at different tracks. Hopefully, I definitely would like to try to defend the championship at PMS for next year. That's going to be something I'm going to try really hard to do. And then also eventually I would like to try to get like a series, either to the Rush Mod Weekly or Touring Series Championship. That's something that I have my eyes set on trying to do here.
Can you explain to the viewers what the difference is between the Weekly Series Championship and the Touring Series Championship? Because there's always these bunch of different champions that come out of Rush. You know, you got your like Futures Cup champions, you got your Touring Series champions, your Weekly Series champions, the Wheelman champion. There's always these different champions. And can you do a breakdown of what some of the differences are to your understanding?
So what the Futures Cup champion, that's like all the drivers that are under the age of 18. They all compete within each other. Like with every race, they get the points and see and that's who decides the Futures Cup champion. That's like for like the super young people, I guess you can say. And then then we have our touring series. So we have a certain amount of tracks that we go to that are our tour races. And we get points for those races, and those points will go towards the touring series. And then we have our weekly series, which is like Raceway 7, Sharon, PMS, all those races that we hit throughout the year. They all get tied together, and she actually takes our best 12, and then that's your weekly points.
So that definitely helps out because that gives you, they only take 12 and you might hit, anywhere from 15 to 20 races in a season. And that definitely helps because if you miss for any reason, if you have any difficulties, any breakdowns, you get to kind of wipe that slate clean and move on to the next race without having to worry about how detrimental it was to your points.
Yeah. And it's definitely nice and definitely helps like cause too, like in case like something happens and you can't really make a race that's super far away, or you're a guy that doesn't want to run 2 nights a week. You can run just on Saturdays or just on Fridays if you want to, and still in the end of the season have a good chance at a top 10 or top 5 in points.
You talked about your dad, your grandfather, or at least your grandfather. You talked about how he was owned an E-Mod. Did they have any success? Where did they run?
My grandfather, he owned E-Mods, and we ran a PMS. We actually, at our time, we had a excavating company, and Russ Matika worked for us, and he was a driver of E-Mods at PMS. And from what I can realize, I was like 3, 4, 5 in those days, so I really don't remember much, but I'm pretty sure to this day, Russ is still like the 5th most winning driver in E-Mods at PMS. From what I could remember and seeing pictures and stuff, we had a pretty good time in our E-Mods out of PMS.
Did your grandpa ever race at all?
He drag raced.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to drag race back. I want to say it was PID was the name of it, the old drag strip that Pittsburgh had back in the. Yeah, he used to drag race out there. And then my dad, he demolition derbied.
Okay.
I'm the first one to start playing the circle.
Man, you guys have like covered all the bases, right?
Yeah.
You just see like a road course racer and asphalt oval, and I guess that's what kids and grandkids are for, right?
Yeah. Maybe my kid will play in asphalt a little bit. Take him out to Jennerstown, get it wet whenever the time comes.
Speaking of Jennerstown asphalt, if money wasn't an issue, the affordability of RUSH Modifieds is great. Obviously, the competition is great as well. So there's really no quote unquote need to move to a different division. But say if money wasn't an issue, would you still stick with the RUSH mods, or would you go ahead and diversify to something else? It maybe something that would make you a little bit happier.
If money wasn't an issue, a big block be going in the car, and I'd be following the super short track series up in New York.
Yeah. I mean, why not go race with the best? On where that racing is.
Yeah.
That is the top echelon, if you will, of racing up in New York for modifieds.
The Northeast.
Yeah. I can't blame you there. I guess if money wasn't an issue and I were to race, I'm okay with not racing. I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, it's cool. Like I've done a couple enduros at Lernerville and stuff like that. Like it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I have such an appreciation for you and all of the drivers for that matter, because the commitment that it takes on a weekly basis through the year, and then there really is no such thing as an off season. Like it is, I can't imagine how difficult it is. And that's removing financials, like just the time and energy and effort that goes into keeping a racing program together. I have a great appreciation for it. I'm sure many fans do as well. But I in that instance, I'm okay with not racing.
I am having a second job.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Having a second job.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a fun second job though.
Like the nut, the bolt check. How much maintenance do you think you spend in a week in your garage trying to go over the car and make sure everything's good to go for the following week?
I'm there for hours every day. Every day I'm out there for hours, just making sure everything is perfect. Down to, like you said, not bolt check and making sure everything's in the trailer, just literally making sure that everything is perfect to try to make sure that there is no failures, even though sometimes you just can't avoid it. Sometimes things just happen.
What about off season? What does off season look like in terms of maintenance and keeping up with the car, and what kind of work goes into the off season?
Well, no, like everybody like us, we strip our cars down and I go over everything, double check, make sure nothing's busted, make sure nothing's stripped out. And I go through every single component with like a fine tooth, make sure everything's good to go, replace whatever needs replaced.
Gotcha. I just had a thought come to mind too. You talked about grandfather and father. Would you consider yourself a first generation driver then? I mean, I guess for dirt, right? You technically are.
Yeah, for dirt.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's interesting. Like, I guess I would consider. I mean, I don't know, because like your dad did demolition derbies. That's just a whole completely different ball game.
Yeah.
So you got the itch from basically you're saying from your grandfather to go racing then.
Yeah, and then just growing up with, whenever I was born, we had the E-mods at the garage, and just growing up going out to PMS to watch Russ drive our cars. But it was definitely my grandfather that got me into it. He's the one who got me into my first go-kart. He's the one who started the whole, as you can say, as my people, like my mom, my dad, he created the monster.
And now you race at Dirt's Monster half mile, so
yeah,
it's only fitting. Yeah. You mentioned your grandfather, your dad. Those are obviously two guys that were instrumental to your racing career. We mentioned Tim Schaefer a little bit ago, but how about the people who help make your racing program happen on a weekly and annual basis?
I mean, besides my grandfather and dad, got to thank Greater Pitt Auto Body and Paint Specialist, RS Fab and Equipment Services, LLC, Beaver Valley Auto Mall, Pittsburgh Tire, Teo Fabrication, and all the guys at Teo. They help me out so much. Whatever question I have, their engineer, he'll talk to me. If we need a part, they make sure they get it to us on time to race. So got to really thank Teo. And then my two crew guys that come on this year, Louis Mattis and Austin Grawl. They came because before this season, it was just me and my dad, and sometimes just me and my pap. And with me driving and doing changes of whatever the car needs from heat race to feature, it was a lot. So having those two come on board this year was a big help, and we really appreciate those two guys.
Yeah, Austin Grawl is one of those guys who I've gotten to know pretty good over the past year or two. He's just one of those guys that's just dedicated. He's so passionate about the sport. He's passionate about helping people. Like that's his biggest thing. Touring with Dan Angelicchio, and then for you to pick up a guy like that, that's got to be such a helping hand.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. He's a big help. I'm very thankful to have him as part of our team now.
And the cool thing is he races go-karts. Do you still dabble at all at Schaefer's?
Yeah, that's how I met Austin. I mean, I try every year to race over there, but just race season comes and the modified takes over. But I still have a go-kart. I think I ran over there 3 times this year, twice in the beginning of the season. Then he's at end of the year party race in October. I raced my kart over there this year. So yeah, I still have it. I can take it over every once in a while on a Wednesday. There's nothing to do and I'll play. Cause it's literally, there's my race shop, a cornfield, Schaefer Speedway. So it's like a 30-second drive. Whenever I was younger and I didn't have a driver's license and my pap would be working late or something, wouldn't have a vehicle to get to the kart track. I'd have my quad in a little trailer. Me and my buddy would throw my go-kart on this little like yard trailer and take it over on the quad, race it.
Anything to get to the racetrack.
Yep, whatever it takes.
That's definitely one of the unique ones. You see buses, you know, back in the day, you saw buses, and even now, Garrett Opachin drives a minibus to the racetrack hauling his hobby stock. But I think that's the first time I've ever heard of a quad transferring anything to a racetrack. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun. We were like probably 13 years old. Me and my buddy just going racing go-karts on a Wednesday night.
Any cool other stories you got?
No, I can't remember. Everything kind of blurs together.
Well, let's hope that the 2023 season does not just blur together. Hopefully it's just as, if not even more successful for you. 6 years of racing, you took your licks, but you finally made it happen. You finally got that first checkered flag, made it to victory lane. You earned a track championship along the way as well, just to cap off the year. So 2023, hopefully going to be a big year for you. Any closing thoughts before we go ahead and wrap things up here, Jacob?
No, really just going to try to give it all I got for 2023, make it better than 2022. I'm more than happy with getting a track championship this year, especially because I never would have thought like my first win and a track championship would be literally the same exact season. And just because that happened, I'm so happy and just so grateful. And I appreciate everybody who's stood behind me and helped me along the way and got me to this point. I'm going to continue to strive and get better.
Is there anywhere that fans can track you and watch your progress on social media?
Yeah. If you look up Jordan Racing on Facebook, that's where I keep everybody updated. I post during the week where we're racing, what's going on with us, how we did. So, yeah, follow Jordan Racing on Facebook. So where I keep everybody up to date on what's going on.
I've made so many mistakes with your name because you're one of those guys that's got two first names as a first and a last name. And I think like one of the first times I ever met you, I called you Jordan. And I have to catch myself every time. So I apologize if I did it at any point in this interview, by the way.
No, you're all good. It happens. Yep. Everybody. The
other thing I wanted to mention too, you got quite the head of hair.
Yeah, I get it from my mom.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate a good mullet. Anytime I get to see one, you got the business in the front, party in the back going on, and I can't grow a mullet. At least I don't think I can. I've never tried, so I shouldn't say I can't. But I'm not willing to. But I can certainly appreciate those who do.
Thank you. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon because it was weird. It was like the week. It was probably like 2 days before I got my first win at PMS. I decided to I needed a haircut. So my one friend was like, "Oh, I'll get a mullet." I was like, "You know what? I'll get a mullet. Might as well." You know what I mean? I got the mullet, and 2 days later went to PMS and I won my first race. I was like, "Oh, maybe there's some good luck in this thing." I was like, "I think I'm going to keep it."
Yeah, you can't ruin a good thing. If you got something going for you, you just got to leave it.
Exactly.
All right, Jacob Jordan, thank you so much for your time. We definitely appreciate it. Follow Jacob Jordan Racing on Facebook. We will see you before the start of next season. We will actually see you at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center for the World of Wheels show.
Yes.
You're going to be there to represent Pittsburgh's Pennsylvania Motor Speedway as a 2022 track champion. I tell you what, does that get tired? Do you get tired of hearing that at all?
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, you earned it. So congratulations once again on all of your accomplishments this past season. We look forward to January at the World of Wheels show, and we look forward to the season opener in April.
Yep, it's going to be fun.
All right. Once again, Jacob Jordan, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Jacob Jordan, we will see you at the track, and we'll see you at the convention center.
Yep, thank you for having me on, Tyler.
Yep, take care. We'll see you.
See ya.